Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to say this as a Chiefs fan. It is embarrassing that you had to ramble on to Josh Allen about a call that was 100% correct. And to the Chiefs fan base, saying that he wasn't offsides at all, yes, he was. KT was absolutely offsides. And the NFL officiating crews not consistently calling it on other players doesn't mean that KT wasn't offsides. If you're going to complain about anything, make this selective enforcement argument. At least the team out east figured out how to do that correctly. Most of them, anyway. Today is December 15th, 2023. I'm Matt Menson, and welcome to the Cornfield Sports Pod. Remote edition for about a month or so here. Of course, I want to welcome in my co-host, Blake Peterson, and also joining us at the mic today is Vinnie Cataldo, our producer.
Hello, everybody.
Our lovely producer.
Let's go right ahead and dive into the NFL here first with the Chiefs. That game itself wasn't pretty. I don't like that Mahomes is even putting the Chiefs in these positions right now because he should be doing better. He's turned into a check down merchant without Tyreek Hill.
Very
or
much.
Juju Smith-Schuster. Or lack of other receivers to take any pressure off of Travis Kelce. They don't have a downfield threat. And Isaiah Pacheco being hurt doesn't make anything any better. But yeah, thank you, Kadarius Toney, for single-handedly giving the Chiefs another L. I'm mad about that one.
For one of the probably the greatest plays, or one of the best plays in this entire season, gets ruined by Kadarius Toney.
And it doesn't even count.
Yeah,
literally.
And Kadarius Toney was part of that play too. Like that could have been a highlight reel play for KT, and instead he was the reason it didn't even happen at all.
Right.
It was such a disappointment. But yeah, Kansas City definitely needs a better receiving core. I mean, between the drops in week one and not being able to get open. Drops have been a problem for the entire receiving core the entire year, but it was particularly bad for KT in week one, and things haven't really improved all that much. But with Travis Kelce being the only serious threat right now, defenses are painted to him. And they need to be able to take some of that pressure off of Kelce, because he can't play at his best when he's got three defenders on him all the time.
What can you do? There really is nothing.
Well, the Chiefs should have did more by the trade deadline. They got McCole Hardman back, and now he's injured. So I don't know what you want to do about that one. But they should have got someone who's a little bit more of a vertical threat. The kind of guy that can go up and get a jump ball. Because it seems like they're going with speed receivers as their game right now. But, I want to see the Chiefs, get a guy here once we get to the offseason. Either that or pick up a guy off waivers or something like that that can get up and actually has a vertical, go up and get the jump ball. Because they're missing that right now. And the guy that's just got sticky hands that can get them in tight windows where he's maybe not going to burn a guy on a vertical route, but, he can just get a tight pass.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we'll see what ends up happening for their next game because, well, they should at least be able to win this one because the Patriots can't score. But they'll be at New England, so.
Final year for the Patriots with Bill Belichick.
Oh, boy.
Yep. The spread on this one is Kansas City -9. Considering they're playing New England, and New England has no offense, and Kansas City still has decent defense, I'll take Kansas City to cover this one.
Yeah, I think it'll be easy.
I think it'll be low scoring. My
brother said that the Patriots are the team who should not be named. They have terrible offense, but their defense can actually do something.
Their defense ain't bad. I would expect this game to be low scoring, but I still think the Chiefs will cover because I don't think the Patriots are even going to crack double digits in this game.
I don't hear much about Patriots being that good this year, especially.
It's because there's nothing good about them really to talk about aside from their defense.
Yeah.
Their defense can hold their own, which is why they're not like winless on the year. But their offense is just completely inept. They have the worst offense in the league. But yeah, I like Kansas City to cover this one. I think it's going to be a low-score game. This seems like the kind of game where it's going to be like a 17-7, 20-9, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then coming up after that, they'll have the Raiders on Christmas Day. Here's my message to the NFL on this one. Christmas is not your holiday. Get off. The NBA gets Christmas. You get Thanksgiving.
So MLB gets 4th of July in the summer. Matt, what does soccer get?
Soccer's not real.
And hello, what about the NHL? What do they get?
Yeah, they need to figure that one out. I think they should take like Easter or something, but we'll see what ends up happening with that. I don't know. I think it'd be cool if the NHL did something. You know, well, they're not going to get New Year's because that's like a college football holiday. But I mean, I guess Easter's probably the best candidate for that.
I think Easter should be at NHL. I mean,
I wouldn't mind it.
I mean, NHL deserves something.
Making that playoff push too, right there.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
That would make that's like because that's what the NFL gets. They get the Christmas, which is like 2 weeks before the playoffs start.
Right, but the NFL doesn't usually play on Christmas. That's the NBA.
I mean, there are some Christmas games.
Because well, not usually. Usually it's just NBA, unless Christmas is on Sunday.
Yeah.
But like with NBA, it said like Christmas is when the season really starts. So
yeah.
But yeah, the NHL can find a holiday. I think Easter would be a good one, but because the other of the big four all have a major holiday that they get to claim. You know, NFL and Thanksgiving is synonymous. And then, of course, the NBA and Christmas and MLB and the 4th of July. So, MLB TV being free on the 4th of July is amazing. Just watching baseball all day. That's the way to spend 4th of July. Baseball and fireworks.
America.
That's right. Yeah. Aside from the Chiefs, you know, not being able to play football by its own rules and then complaining when they get called out on it. We got some other NFL teams to talk about here too. The Vikings right now, they're up to 7-6 in the ugliest game of the year.
Oh no, not the Vikings.
Yep.
They won versus the Raiders. Here's what you missed. Punt, 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 punt. Missed field goal. Punt. There was a fumble. Punt, 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 punt. Field goal and a punt
for a final score of 3-0.
Yeah, somewhere in there was fumbles and an interception.
Reminds me of a team that I know.
But oh my gosh, like just watching that, and then, well, you guys probably saw last night with the Raiders.
Yeah.
They got a little mad.
Yeah, a little bit. They decided that they needed to prove that they did, in fact, have an offense.
But that's a little off topic.
And the end result of that is the Chargers coach getting fired today. So
that's the story of the week right there.
And when you've allowed 42 points by the 12-minute mark in the third quarter, that's pretty. That's bad.
You're done.
Yeah.
But Vikings versus Raiders, that was the lowest scoring NFL game in 16 years since Pittsburgh beat Miami in 2007. This could have been the first game to end in a scoreless regulation since New York versus Detroit in 1943.
Brian Ferentz would have been proud.
Oh, yes, he would have been.
Yeah. No, he was probably taking notes.
Yeah.
But
for his next...
He's still got a bowl game to call.
He's
still got a bowl game to call for the team out east. So maybe Tom Manning was taking notes too.
Probably Tom Manning.
They probably were both taking notes. Maybe they're gonna end up on the same staff somewhere and just absolutely hinder him.
Probably.
Just wonder how both fan bases would react.
Watch like the Indianapolis Colts or something, put both of them on their staff, and then they're going to have the worst offense in the league next year. Watch that happen.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Next game for the Vikings is going to be against the Bengals tomorrow, NFL Network. Justin Jefferson said he's going to be back for this one. He said he's going to be playing. So that will be good news for Minnesota. But the line on this one is Cincinnati minus 3.5. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one? On this line? Who's covering?
Even if they get Justin Jefferson back, I don't see the Vikings doing much, so I really think that Cincinnati's going to take this one.
The thing is, Cincinnati hasn't lived up to their expectations either. I mean, Joe Mixon went from being one of the better one of the better running backs in the league to being just kind of middle of the road. So, and Jamar Chase has not lived up to expectations either. That 3.5 though, that's more than a field goal. So, saying that Minnesota is going to win by more than a field goal, I think might be a stretch for this one. This seems like the kind of game that's going to come down to a last-second field goal. So I'll take Minnesota to cover this one. I don't think Cincinnati's going to win this by anything other than like a last-second field goal or potentially getting a field goal late in the fourth quarter and then getting a stop and finishing with a kneel down or something like that.
Yeah.
This game seems like it's going to end where the last score will be a field goal that causes a lead change.
Right.
I don't know. Do you guys have any different thoughts on that? No?
Tough to say.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then after that, the Vikings will have the Lions on Christmas Eve. Thank you for not putting that game on Christmas Day, NFL. Yeah, I'm not happy about that one. Chicago Bears. Explain this one to me, Blake. They beat Detroit.
I just knew Detroit was going to choke somehow. I just knew. I mean, because that's what you get when you decide to score in the second quarter for Detroit. So
if you remember last week when we were talking about this game, I was just rambling about how I had no idea what was going to happen with this game.
I just had that thought back of my head. It's like they're going to choke this somehow.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you had told me that Detroit was only going to score in the second quarter, I would have been surprised but not shocked.
Yeah,
because I certainly wouldn't have predicted it, but I basically knew that I was not going to predict that game correctly, basically no matter how it went.
But Jared Goff, how do you throw 2 interceptions? And that added up to 3 turnovers for the entire game. Justin Fields somehow got a passing tutty and a rushing tutty at the same time, or during the same game.
I was gonna say you can't have a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown at the same time.
Nah, that's not what I meant to say.
That don't work. Yeah. Now Bears defense though, you got to talk about the Bears defense now with Montez Sweat. That has changed this Bears defense for the better since they acquired Montez Sweat before the trade deadline. I mean, it's reduced the strain on the defensive front as a whole because he's such a weapon. Whereas now, offensive line isn't having to divert attention away from that end. It's freeing up your entire defensive line to get a little bit more action. You're getting more pressure on the quarterback as a result of that. And that means less time in the pocket, less passing time. Your linebackers and your secondary does not have to cover as long, which has helped the entire team. When your defense can get off the field, that gives your offense more opportunities, so it's making your offense better too. Montez Sweat has elevated every single player on this team, and that has certainly made the Bears a much better team adding Montez Sweat. Yeah, next game at the Browns. Cleveland by 3 is what the line is. I don't know. What are you guys thinking on this one?
I think it's pretty accurate.
Cleveland by 3. Who are you taking to cover, though?
I'll take Cleveland. I'm just
Cleveland
guessing.
to cover. Yeah, this seems like the kind of game. I mean, the Bears just trounced Detroit, beating them by 15 points. When they only they scored over double the number of points that Detroit did. Chicago's feeling really good coming off of this one, especially beating a team that should have been better than them. And I think they might get caught sleeping on this one. Or I guess they're the Bears. We'll call it hibernation. Nah, I like Cleveland to cover this one. I don't like I don't like picking 3-point spreads because that's a field goal exactly. But I'll take Cleveland on this one. And then the Bears will have the Cardinals on Christmas Eve. Thank you for putting it on Christmas Eve.
I mean, it's Christmas Eve is on a Sunday, so I mean, it makes the most sense. But
right,
don't you think there are a lot of Christmas Eve games, regardless of when it is like when it falls on like the week, like a day of the week?
Well, it feels like I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy, but for some reason it feels like Christmas just always falls on like a Sunday or a Saturday. I don't know why that is, but like or a Monday, but like I don't know. Or wait, is Christmas a Monday this week or this year?
Yeah,
Christmas. Okay, so it's Monday Night Football. Okay, that's why there's a Christmas game.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine all those people on Christmas Eve who are going to be like doing like church and stuff, doing family stuff, and won't get to watch any football.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why you go to the late night church services on Christmas Eve, so you can still watch football or basketball or whatever else you got going on that day. Go to your family Christmas parties, all that good stuff. All right. We got one more NFL team to cover here. Green Bay Packers lost versus the Giants 24-22.
Yeah, this game is really evenly matched. Like total yards, first downs to possession time, they were relatively close. It just really came down to like getting those extra points like at the end.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know about you guys, but if I'm an NFL team right now, I don't want to be playing against the Tommy DeVito Giants.
No, everybody's making all those jokes about his manager looking like exactly who do you think Tommy DeVito's agent would look like?
Yep.
Like looking like a complete gangster, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, but I mean, Tommy DeVito's winning games for him while Daniel Jones, as overpaid as he is, was not winning games. I mean, how much is Daniel Jones' contract? Daniel Jones has an insane contract, and he was not winning them games. So now we'll see how long the Tommy DeVito thing lasts, because Daniel Jones was winning the Giants games last year. So
4-year, $160 million contract with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. And then Green Bay is against the Bucks next week, and then they'll have Panthers Christmas Eve. But against the Bucks,
another Christmas Eve game.
Well,
awesome.
if Christmas Eve is on a Sunday, then
yeah,
I guess that makes sense. But Green Bay -3.5 against Tampa, and this is going to be at Lambeau Field.
I take Green Bay home field advantage. They got it. They always have done good with them.
No,
Green Bay absolutely
amazing.
If I was going to take a lock this week, this is the one I would take as a lock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Green Bay's going to cover easily.
Yeah, this one's a lock for the week. All right, NBA Timberwolves 8-5, first in the Northwest. They have been riding a very, very talented defense. Between Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, that center spot has just been wild for the Timberwolves so far this year. And there isn't really another team that's got an answer to that right now.
This week they've had wins against Grizzlies, Mavericks, and just one loss to the Pelicans.
Yeah. And then we're starting to kind of approach that the NBA trade season where we might start getting some of these in-season trades. The deadline's not for a while yet, but the talk is certainly going to start heating up. And if the Timberwolves are looking for anything right now, they're looking for offense. They need a shooter. Defense, they've got all the defense in the world right now. They got the best defense in the NBA, bar none. They can afford to sacrifice a little bit of that. They've got a lot of defense that they can sacrifice. but salary cap is kind of a problem for the major trades in Minnesota, so maybe wouldn't expect anything too crazy there, especially since they're probably not going to be able to trade draft picks because of that, because they can't take on too much more salary right now without hitting the apron. So if they were to make a big trade, it's probably going to be player for player.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's because then you at least drop the one contract in favor of another. So that might still increase your salary, but not as much as trading draft picks for a player. All right, and then in the next week here, Pacers are going to be at Miami, at Philadelphia, and then back home against the Lakers.
Very interesting lineup of games. One game at home, 2 away, and then 1 back home. So I think that
It's going to be a short road trip out east. It won't be a long one.
I mean, they had a good road trip for the previous week, so
That's going to be a tough stretch that they're facing here, though, in the next week with Indiana, Philadelphia, and LA all thrown in there. I don't think that they're going to struggle too much with the game at the Heat. The Heat are not as good this year as they were last year. This definitely isn't the team that made that finals run. But this is going to be a tougher week for the Timberwolves, it looks like. Now, if they walk out of this week with, 3 wins, then this is going to be one heck of a team, because that's going to be a really good team that could actually walk out of this 4-game stretch here with, 3 wins. But I would expect like a 2-2 out of this next week. But Milwaukee Bucks, 17-7 and first in the Central.
Mm-hmm.
These upper Midwest teams are doing pretty well. In last week, overtime win versus the Bulls. Yeah, I'm not happy about that one, but whatever.
I figured you weren't.
No, I'm not. I'm really not happy about that. But the Bulls have actually played pretty well for me in the last couple weeks, so I'll accept this one for what it's worth. And at least it was in overtime, so it didn't look bad for the Bulls. But yeah, 133-129, and then the Bucks also got a revenge win against the Pacers. 140 points on offense. Note, this is not an overtime game. There was no extra playing time added to this game. They put that up in regulation. That's video game numbers when you've got 2K set to easy kind of scoring.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's massive, massive numbers. Now, the Pacers scoring 126 points, that's not a video game number, but can't have it all in one game. It is real
Close.
life. You can't have it all. I mean, it's not like, now if you were going to win like 140 to like 62, that's video game numbers. But I mean, Milwaukee's offense was video game numbers in this game. And that's just absolutely wild. And then, again, I do want to talk about the trades that we're looking at coming up here. They're going to be looking for defense. I got the exact opposite problem that Minnesota does. Minnesota's got all the defense in the world, not as much offense. Milwaukee's got all the offense in the world and not a ton of defense right now. They're missing Jrue Holiday. Dame Lillard was a great pickup for their offense, but it was a defensive sacrifice. But the Bucks don't have much to trade right now. I would not expect to see a lot from the Bucks on the trade market because they are limited by the second apron salary cap. So their salary has to be less than $12.4 million in any salary increase. So they're not going to be adding any star players without subtracting from their roster for sure. They don't have a ton of room to make large trades. Upcoming for the Bucks, homestand against the Pistons, Rockets, Spurs, and Magic here in the next week.
That's huge for a home lineup.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel for the home court staff. Because
you're used to doing that because of Cyclones TV. So yeah, you've got a little bit of
That's-
the inside knowledge there.
That, and as well as this summer with my internship.
Oh yeah,
so.
with Fondy. Yeah.
Yep. That's.
Yep.
I pity them. Ugh.
Yeah. It makes Milwaukee good money though for the city. And
It
for the
really
team.
does.
So
It really does.
brings a lot of economic action. It's good stuff.
Let's
for
just
them.
hope they can get those wins. Then that'll bring in even more money because people want to watch them
Well,
win.
considering who they're playing, I would expect wins. I mean, they should have no trouble beating the Pistons or the Spurs, and I would think that they should be able to handle their business against the Rockets and the Magic too.
You can say that now, but anything can change. So,
I mean, the Spurs are the worst team in the league right now,
okay, yeah, but
and the Pistons ain't any better.
it all really comes down to the Rockets and the Magic.
Right, and Milwaukee is still a significantly better team than either of them. So, let's talk about the only NBA team that we cover extensively that's not in first place in their division now. Yeah. Chicago Bulls, though, they have played well for me the last couple weeks. They're 5 for their last 7, including here in the last week, wins at the Spurs and at the Heat. And then, of course, that aforementioned overtime loss in Milwaukee. And then they also had a loss to the Nuggets thrown in there. And then, in the previous week, they had won 3 more games, so as part of that 4-game win streak. But coming up into the trade deadline, or not into the trade deadline, but into trade season, the Bulls are probably looking to sell. They're not looking to build because they're not a playoff team right now, as it looks. But they got assets to trade, especially for teams that are, looking for instant success and maybe not longevity. Between DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Alex Caruso, they could get some stuff with that, some draft picks or, some younger guys that maybe don't have quite as big a salary but have potential to become better players. And I like what Chicago could do with that. And then upcoming here, they're going to be at the Heat, at the Sixers, and then home against the Lakers, and then the Spurs. Hockey time. Minnesota Wild. 11 and 12 and 4, 26 points, 7th in the Central. The hockey teams that we're covering are not doing great right now.
They suck.
No.
Yeah, they do. I mean, although the Wild have turned things around since their coaching change. They have very much turned things around since their coaching change. What do I have? Since the coaching change, the Wild are 6-2 after that 7-game skid. So that was definitely the right move for the Wild to make.
No, they needed that very bad.
Yeah, they did. But in the last week, a loss at the Oilers before wins at the Kraken and at the Flames. That win against the Kraken was actually the 8th consecutive loss for Seattle.
And I'm surprised they haven't fired their coach yet after 8 losses in a row.
Yeah, that's
like that's bad.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, don't forget that that's a program that's still relatively young and has a lot of developing to do. Because they're, was it 3 years ago that the NHL expanded to add them? This is their 3rd season in right now? Yeah, they haven't been around for all that long. So.
They were founded in 2018.
Okay,
Actually,
they're a little bit older than I thought.
Well, I think
what season was their first season?
2021. So they were approved by the NHL.
Okay, yeah, 2021 was their first season though.
Yeah, but they were founded.
Right, but founding and actually starting and playing are 2 different things.
Yeah, so they've been playing for about 2 years.
So yeah, this is their 3rd season in the league. I was correct.
And their 2nd year last year, they had a good cup run.
Yeah, they did.
Playoff run.
Yeah, they did. But again, when your team is that new, your organizational structure is still doing a lot of work. They're stabilizing out now, but there's still a lot that needs to be done for a team that's not firmly established in the league. Heck, even Anaheim is still having problems with this 20 or almost 30 years later now. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, upcoming for the Wild here, they're going to be home against the Canucks before they head out east to play the Penguins and the Bruins, and then they return home to play the Canadians.
The Canucks are on an actually really good season so far, so that's going to be a good game to watch.
Vancouver's a dangerous team this year.
But we know what happens when they're a dangerous team. They somehow are going to choke in the playoffs.
The President's Trophy curse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if they win the President's Trophy, they ain't winning the Stanley Cup. So, just decide which one you'd rather have. Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Now we get into the team of my favorites that somehow does not want to play well, no matter what happens. They don't want to play.
Now, Blackhawks, what is going on?
Hey, they got one win in the last week, okay?
They got one
win.
One. They got a whole win. They got a whole win, Vinny.
A whole win!
Yes.
Against the Blues. They got a whole win against the Blues. How
which
great.
resulted in the Blues firing their coach, which we'll get to in a sec.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a second.
You lose the Blackhawks. That's it. You're done. Get out.
Yeah.
One loss against the Blackhawks. Nope, you're done.
But yeah, they beat the Blues 3-1. And then they lost to the Caps 4-2 and the Oilers 4-1 in the Battle of the Connors, where it was very firmly established that McDavid beat Bedard.
McDavid is the definitive Connor.
Yeah. Now, Bedard did have the initial goal in this game.
He did, but
no,
nothing can stop McDavid.
McDavid had 2 assists, so. And McDavid has a Draisaitl, and Bedard does not. So.
Bedard, what does Bedard have? I don't think anything.
Well, right now I'm a little shocked that he still has a coach.
Yeah.
We'll
get into that in a second.
And then, yeah, after the Battle of the Connors, which was an interesting game to watch on ESPN. Normally I like TNT's crew a little bit better, but that...
Nothing ever is going to beat the NHL and NBC with Eddie Olczyk and Doc Emmerich. That was, in my opinion, the definitive lineup for commentating hockey.
I mean, the best crews, though, are kind of split between the stations. I mean, like, because for hockey, yeah, NBC, while they were still in it, had the best crew. Now,
I will say,
now
I
it's
say
not.
This.
Now it's not because NBC's
too.
not in it anymore.
Right. I will say this, too. In my opinion, Kenny Albert is a hockey commentator. I do not see him as an NFL commentator. I think he's better at commentating hockey than he is football.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Like, he has always been ever since since Mike Emmerich left, Kenny Albert is the voice of the NHL.
Yeah. And
I just don't see it when he moves over to the NFL. It doesn't sound right. It's like when Al Michaels, he used to call the hockey back in the 80s, and then he moved to football. It's like it took a while for him to like make that change and for it to feel like natural. But
right, or also the difference. Like I think if you look at other sports, I think Joe Buck is a much better baseball commentator than football.
Oh, absolutely. Like he's made better calls in baseball than he has in football in his entire time.
I think Joe Buck's not a terrible football commentator. I just think he's a really good baseball commentator.
Well, what does he enjoy more?
I would think baseball. Just by listening, I would think baseball.
Baseball, there's not much to you have time and between pitches and stuff to
not anymore. We have a pitch clock now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, it seems like for pretty much all the other sports though, anymore, Turner's got the best broadcasting. They've been the best broadcast crew for the NBA for a while, and then for the MLB, they're probably the best now on TBS. Their crew with TBS is fantastic.
Right.
March Madness is the best announcing crews for college basketball. And then for the NHL, now that NBC is out of the game, TNT's got the best crew for hockey as well. So.
They do. They always ever since even when NHL was on NBC, TNT had some great broadcasting when the playoffs happened.
Yeah, and the only major sports that they're not in is football. And then I think you could I would make the argument that for both collegiate and professional football, CBS has the best crews. So,
right.
I love listening to CBS football broadcasts. They're fantastic.
They're fun.
They are absolutely terrific. at
Well, with that
CBS.
loss to the Kraken, that ended the 8-game skid for Seattle, and can you imagine like being the Blackhawks and losing to a team who's lost 8 in a row?
Yeah.
Like
You go from getting the Blues coach fired to losing a team that lost 8 in a row.
But even worse, they lost 7-1.
Yeah, the defense just like non-existent.
They did not want to show up.
No, absolute embarrassment.
It's like, was the defense hungover or something?
But that's basically the definition of Chicago sports this year. Unless you're a Cubs fan. The Cubs are okay. They might have missed the playoffs, but they weren't terrible.
I mean, the Bears are recuperating, so anything can happen with that.
Yeah, I mean,
they're recuperating, but it's really late into the season.
Now, the one football game that took place at Wrigley Field was only the 7th highest scoring event there. There were six higher scoring baseball games that the Cubs played in than the football game between Team Out East and Northwestern.
Oh, that football game.
Oh my God, that was intense pain to watch as a Team Out East fan.
Yeah. But that was exactly what it was.
Of all the teams though that we cover, I don't understand how the Blackhawks can be the worst performing. Like,
and be the only one that hasn't fired their coach.
Seriously, like of all
I mean,
the teams,
someone's got to be the worst performing, but to be the worst performing and not do anything about it.
Yes, literally, and like of all the teams we cover, most of them had winning records and they fired their coach. Chicago is the worst team, yet somehow they don't want to fire their coach.
Yeah, and I mean they also got a roster that is not deep at all. It's Bedard and then it's everybody else. Now,
true.
I don't know if you want to make the argument that it's the least deep roster that we cover though, because the other option is the Blues, where instead of it being Bedard and everybody else, it's just everybody else.
Yeah.
But
Bedard, he's making his Rookie of the Year case.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's leading rookies in goals and assists. So
even though he has a terrible team, he's still doing.
That's because he
is
his entire team. But
yeah,
I mean, he's leading all rookies in goals and assists. So I mean, you add those together, he's leading in points. But we'll see what he ends up continuing to do before that voting ends up happening if he stays strong. Upcoming
games against the Canucks and the Avalanche.
Yep,
Who knows?
Both will be at home in the United Center. So
I'm gonna say right now, they're gonna take the L's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, against the Canucks and the Avs, yeah, they're gonna lose those games.
It's going to be high scoring from those teams and very, very low scoring from the Blackhawks.
Yeah, it will. All right. We've definitely done some rambling already about St. Louis, but here in the last week, they had losses to the Blue Jackets, the Blackhawks, and the Red Wings before finally getting a win versus the Senators. And then, of course, after that loss against the Blackhawks, Coach Craig Berube was fired. Drew Bannister was named as their interim head coach. He was their AHL affiliates head coach, Springfield Thunderbirds. And he did leave the Thunderbirds to the Calder Cup in his first year as a head coach there.
So, you guys say he's qualified?
I don't know who else they were going to pick.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think he may be, but like you look at like AHL and you look at NHL, they may be close to each other in terms of like players and stuff, but they're
stylistically different.
Yeah, it's so much different from like the two.
But at the same time, really far apart. But at the same time, though, you're going to struggle to hire coaches from elsewhere in the NHL in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
because the coaching carousel doesn't move until the season's done.
Which I'm pretty sure is why Chicago hasn't fired theirs, because they don't want to go through that entire trouble looking for a new coach.
They don't want to try to name an interim head coach that probably won't be any better.
They want to try. They could even get their affiliate of the AHL from Rockford.
Right.
How much you want to say that Bannister will be head coach eventually?
That I have no idea. I don't know.
I think they're gonna keep him on for the rest of the season, and then over the
Right.
offseason they're gonna
A
look
lot
for
of
another
times,
coach.
a lot of times when guys move from the AHL to the NHL, though, they go from like head of an AHL team to an assistant spot in the NHL.
Yeah.
They don't go straight from head to head. And if you want a good example of why you shouldn't go from head to head, Dallas Eakins. Anyway, before I start rambling too much about Dallas Eakins, yeah, Berube, he did lead the Blues to their first Stanley Cup title ever in the 2018-2019 season. And he did have a career record of 206, 132, and 44 with the Blues. So he was actually a fairly successful coach during his time in St. Louis. But I think I think that franchise was getting a little bit fed up with the lack of success lately, where things seem to be falling off a cliff. So, upcoming here, they're going to be at home against the Stars at the Enterprise Center before they go to Amalie Arena to play the Lightning, and then they continue their road trip in Florida when they go to the Panthers. All right. There ain't a lot of college sports to talk about this week, but there are still some. Let's go up to that. There is really nothing to talk about in the way of football right now for the Cyclones. But volleyball, we at least had a little bit of transfer portal action. Kelsey Perry, one of our middle blockers, just entered the transfer portal earlier this week. And setter Addie Heidemann also entered the transfer portal. With the incoming freshmen that are currently signed, next year Iowa State will only have 2 setters and 2 middles. So Coach Christie is going to have to try to make something happen out of the transfer portal because there's not much depth there right now.
No.
And
she'll cook. We trust Christie.
Yeah. I mean, and I understand why. I understand perfectly well why Addie transferred because her being a junior while Morgan's only a sophomore this year, and Morgan being the starter, there was no good reason to believe that Addie was going to be able to overtake Morgan from that starting spot. I think Morgan's a really good setter, and she's firmly established herself in that role. Yeah. So it makes perfect sense to me that Addie was going to transfer because she's going to want playing time. Of course she does. But I was very shocked in discovering that Kelsey was entering the transfer portal because she's basically guaranteed to be a starter next year with Pam, with Jordan and Alexis both graduating. Jordan wasn't going to stick around. She's going to grad school, so she's grad transferring, and then no word yet from Alexis on what she's doing. Whether or not she's going to grad transfer somewhere or if she's just going to be done playing volleyball or if she's going to try to go pro internationally or something like that. We'll see what ends up happening. But
yeah.
Also on the list.
What? We got another transfer on the list here?
No, not that. I was going to say also with other news with Nayeli Gonzalez.
Oh, yeah, she honorable mention All-American.
Yeah. Add that to her ever-growing list of honors.
Yeah, of course. It's always good stuff to see from Nayeli. And then in the world of basketball here, men's basketball back on Sunday, they dropped the 100-piece against Prairie View A&M. They won that game 107-56. Taman Lipsey setting the ISU single-game steals record at 8. And Curtis Jones finally found his hot hand from three-point land. That was amazing to see.
We needed to see that from him very bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was basically brought into Iowa State to be a sniper. And now that he's found that hot hand, I really hope it stays. Because if it does, between him and Momcilovic, and now that Taman Lipsey has found his stroke this year too, they could shoot the lights out. This team can be very dangerous.
Nah, we needed to see that ever since Otzelberger started.
Well, this is the first year that we've really seen where it's Otzelberger's team.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's great stuff that we've got. And then right now the team is sitting at third nationally in the point differential. And here's the top 4 teams right now. Arizona, BYU, Iowa State, and Houston.
What do
Vinnie,
you notice?
Vinny, what do those 4 teams all have in common?
I don't know. What do they have in common?
They're all in the Big 12 next year.
Oh,
Every single one of them. The Big 12 is going to be an extremely deep league next year.
yeah.
I mean, as if they weren't already the best league in collegiate basketball, they're going to be even better. The Big 12 is going to be an extremely dangerous league. They're going to be beating up on each other during conference play, but when you get to March, look for the Big 12 to make a lot of deep runs. I mean, I don't think anybody last year expected K-State to make a run all the way to the Elite Eight, but there they did.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what happens when you play the best opponents for the entire season. You are prepared for the action in March. And that's exactly what happened with the Big 12.
Yeah.
And then, so upcoming here for Iowa State, they got games against Florida A&M and Eastern Illinois. For women's basketball, they had a win versus North Dakota State. They almost dropped the 90 piece on them. They won that one 89-59. Addie Brown was really close to having a triple-double. Was it 2 steals away? Or not steals, 2 assists? 2 assists.
I think it might have been.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Pretty sure she had 8 assists, but she had a double-double,
Yep.
points, rebounds. ISU went out and took care of business in that game, though. They did exactly what they needed to do. They didn't play sloppy. And if they play like that consistently, they will be a dangerous team in come Big 12 play. Will they win every game, even when they play as well as they did? No. But they just need to stay consistent with doing what they did because they weren't making mistakes. They were not making a lot of mistakes. The game was not sloppy. Their technique was good. But now, are they going to be able to play consistently like that? Considering the team is all freshmen, I kind of doubt it. All freshmen outside of Isnell Nadabu, Hannah Bellinger, and Nia Du basically right now. Until Emily Ryan gets back, which she told me is going to be soon. So how soon? I don't know. She said soon. But aside from that, I'd love to. I really want Emily Ryan to be back sooner rather than later.
Everyone does.
Yeah, well, she's the best player on the team. So, her having not played yet this year, if we're almost dropping a 90 piece on North Dakota State with Emily Ryan, we definitely drop a 90 piece on them. So,
if it carries on with Emily Ryan, do you think she'll redshirt?
No, I doubt it. Or like a medical red shirt maybe, but it's not going to be like a standard red shirt. The NCAA would give her an extra year of eligibility if she's unable to play this year, but I think she will. I mean, she because at the last game that I was at, I asked her pre-game how long it was going to be before she's back, and she said soon. So, how soon is, I don't know, but I think we can expect, her to be back before too long now. Wrestling, there has been no action at all in the last week. They had nothing going on. But Monday, they will be wrestling in the collegiate duels. This will be 3 different duels, all in a row, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. The first one will be against 13th ranked Pitt. Their second game will be against Little Rock. And then their final duel of the night, which will definitely be one that y'all want to watch, is going to be against number 5th ranked Cornell. I have no idea who's going to win that duel. No clue.
It's gonna be really, really close.
Well, when you put the number 5 dual team and the number 6 dual team up against each other, because we're ranked 6th right now. It's gonna be close. They've got talent. We've got talent. Some of it's gonna be who's wrestling good that day and who's not wrestling good that day. Who is a little bit annoyed because they didn't wrestle as well as they wanted to earlier in the day, and so they're coming back with a fury type of thing. That is something that can very easily happen, when you got multiple duels in the same day. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Wrestling against Pitt, I would think we're able to beat Pitt. We should have no trouble at all against Little Rock. Against Cornell, no idea. These duels are all going to be on Rockfin, so
That's one you're going to keep. That's one you're going to have to keep your eye on. That is going to be a good matchup.
Yep.
Against Cornell.
Yep. Yeah, these duels will all be streaming on Rockfin on Monday, so they'll be.
Hey Blake, do you hear that? I think are we experiencing some high-speed winds?
I also
Really?
hear it.
Do we hear it?
I think I hear a little bit.
I hear some high-speed winds.
Well, they happen to just be right behind me, because unfortunately the Swimmies lost to the team out east just recently. But it was an interesting first experience for me, because I couldn't even find a place to sit in that arena. I mean, there were so many team out easters out there. So, unfortunate day, but it was pretty interesting to say the least. But we need to take all of gymnastics. We need to take gymnastics, we need tennis, and we need softball. Because like we still have a shot in this series if we take all three of those, but honestly for me it just seems unlikely.
Yeah, we're playing from behind. Yeah, softball is going to be tough without having Ellie Spellhog pitching this year, with her not being on the team anymore, because she was the anchor on the mound last year, and without her, I don't know how we're able to get that softball win. I don't know too much about gymnastics and tennis. That's a little bit more your domain, but yeah, no, softball, that's one that I struggle to see how we're gonna effectively slow Iowa down in that one.
Yeah, I feel like we got tennis, but I question gymnastics too, which is why I'm thinking it's unlikely.
See, again, that's a sport I don't understand. Sports with judges, I don't understand.
Right.
Exactly.
I guess tennis, like, I understand how tennis works. Like, I get the rules of the game. I just never watch it. But
yeah.
I played in high school, and let me tell you, watching it it got really boring really fast.
yeah,
Like the constant, tennis to me is just as slow as soccer is, because it's just a lot of they have faults, they have the whole time in between. It feels so long, and that's just why I feel like not many people watch it.
It genuinely amazes me that for these the big international tournaments or whatever that they do for tennis, that they can build a separate tennis arena that's the same size as some of the basketball arenas that we see, and they will completely fill them up, and then they just sit there the rest of the year doing nothing.
Look at what Drake has. Drake has a whole tennis arena that rarely gets used.
Well, I'm not even talking about a little collegiate whatever Drake has tennis arena. I'm talking about the big things out in New York or LA.
Right.
Where it's what do you do with the 51 weeks of the year that they're not getting used? I don't understand that. But anyway, follow the Cornfield Sports Pod on Twitter at @CSportsPod. Of course, where you can find me as well at the Menson Minute.
You can find me at Blake Attack 1846.
And you can find me at VinaciousD23.
Tap that follow button on Spotify, the plus button on Apple, subscribe on YouTube and on Rumble.
This is Blake Peterson.
I'm Matt Menson.
And I'm Vinnie Cataldo, the producer.
And this has been the Cornfield Sports Pod.